Ah, yes. Another video. You know, I thought about it, guys, and I wasn't gonna come back. I wanted to make the one video and I'd go on another year's hiatus, but it's just so damn easy. You know what I mean? What was I thinking leaving for a year when talking about idiots like this could just be done so easily? Gweilo60. Let's have a little talkity talk here. As always, he's gonna talk some shit. You know, he's always gonna use these like personal insults because he doesn't actually put facts in his videos. You know, that's not his goal. His goal is not really to be factual. And you know, he goes on and he starts off his video by talking about how cheap it is in China. It's so cheap. He always wants to talk about how cheap it is in China. He talks about deflation. But see, that's the difference between me and you. See, Gweilo, I understand finance, okay? And as much as you hate me, I have a degree in finance. So I know just a little bit more than you do. And I get it. You're going to be like, no, you don't. Nah, nah, nah. But just because you don't want to believe it's true doesn't mean that it's not. Okay? Let's talk about deflation here. You're talking about how a beer costs 5 renminbi. The same it did in 2003. Wow, that sounds amazing, right? But it isn't. Do you know why? Because think about what you're saying for a second here, you moron. Prices frozen for over 20 years isn't prosperity. It's stagnation. Economists have a word for a country where nothing gets more expensive because nobody's spending. It's called a demand crisis. And that's what China has right now. And if you think I'm kidding, take a look at why housing is so damn cheap in China right now compared to what it was. It's not cheap because China solved affordability. It's cheap because the property market is destroying itself. It's imploding. It's in free fall. Okay? Developers are defaulting. The largest companies in China are going around and filing bankruptcy. And millions of Chinese families that have invested their entire life savings into these homes to purchase them in cities like Beijing, Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Shanghai. A lot of these people, their grandmas have given them money and saved money. And then their moms have saved money. And they've saved money. And they spent all this money to buy these houses. And what happened? It's evaporated in the value of the apartments that they own. Because they paid more for their apartment than it's worth now. It's not a good thing. That's a bad thing. And he's selling this idea that foreigners can get houses at a bargain price off the backs of Chinese people. That's what he's proposing. And then he talks about no violence, no panhandlers, no drug addicts, no graffiti. That's not a safety statistic. That sounds like a propaganda press release. You know why? Because there's no independent media in China that reports on crime the way it gets reported anywhere else in the world. Absence of coverage isn't the absence of a problem. That's the difference between people like me, Gweilo, and people like you. Okay? I lived in China, but I was never worried about the Chinese government coming to get me. Okay? I would have never traded my morals to go against my country or my people or my own morals for the Chinese government. Never. And I had those opportunities, just like you did. But I didn't. And you did. That's the difference. You talk about how you go out, you do whatever you want, you buy whatever you want, whenever you want, wherever you want. Okay? Where's the proof? Where are the videos of you buying anything? How come you don't have one of these Chinese electric cars, these EVs, that the propaganda pushes so hard? Why don't you have one, Gweilo? Why are you bragging about cheap scooters instead of electric vehicles? You know why? Because you're a brokey. You have no money. You have no EV. You have no car. You're talking about cheap beer and scooters. Okay? Why do you dress like you're just one step above a homeless guy? If you go out and you buy what you want, and you do what you want, and all this type of stuff, you look like you've never spent a dime on yourself. You've got nothing to show. And if anyone out there thinks that I'm just being rude and I'm just hating on him, go look at his videos. Not a single damn video of him buying anything that's more than $1.50. Nothing. Because he has nothing to show. Okay? And here's a fun question. What about someone like Bill Gates? You think he cares about what beer costs? What about even a mid-class family? You think that they're super worried about what beer costs? Of course not. Because rich people don't track the price of eggs, Gweilo. So why does Gweilo60 bring up the cost of stupid little things like beer and breakfast and coffee in practically every damn video that he puts out? Okay? That just goes to show you how freaking rich this guy is. He's talking to you about eggs and shit like that. He's talking about his real tax bracket. Do you know what tax bracket he's in? He's in the soup dumplings tax bracket. Okay, kings don't eat soup dumplings all the time like you do, Gweilo. And here's the part that actually gives him away. He says 2, 3, 4,000. He says maybe. He says 2, 3, 4, maybe 4,000 Canadian dollars lets you live like a king over here in China. For those of you out there, read between the lines for a second. That's not a hypothetical number. He's secretly telling you his budget. Round it down here, because he's gonna round up because he wants you to think that he's living like I'm living like a king in China. So this guy, what he really makes is 2,000 renminbi or 2,000 Canadian dollars a month. That's his social security, but he won't tell you that. So that's 1,500 US dollars. Okay? That's poo-poo money. Poo-poo money, okay? He can't afford my rent, okay? Can't afford it. He makes poo-poo money. I make in 1 week what he makes in a month, okay? And I'm not even bragging. Okay? That's average, okay? That's the difference, okay? That's the difference. That's his social security, okay? And this thing where he keeps going on and on and on about $2 breakfast that he's so proud of. You could do that here. You can go out and get an egg. Go get some eggs and some sausage. You know, and be like, well, I just ate for $2. But no one does that because that's the cheapest food on the menu. That's not the standard. He's not out there eating steak. Again, he's eating dumpling soup and he's calling that living like a king. That's like me bragging about how cheap America is because I survive on ramen noodles. It's not the same damn thing. And he knows it. Because that's not the norm in China. And that's exactly why he left the Philippines. He came running back to China. Because of the Philippines, right? Because to his own admission, he says this, not me. You can check his videos. The Philippines cost more than China. And he came back. You know why? Because he can't afford the Philippines. Think about that. This motherfucker's telling you that you can live like a king in China. But he got priced out of the Philippines. One of the cheapest countries in the world. Think about that. Gweilo60 can go out. He can do whatever he wants. He can buy whatever he wants. But to live in the Philippines is just, it's above him. He had to go back to China, where everything is $1.50. Doesn't make much sense, does it? Of course not. You know why? Because it's bullshit. It's bullshit. That's what Gweilo is. He's bullshit. You know? It's all bullshit. And then he talks about these visa background checks and about how people have been China's kicked people out. They can't go back to China. You know, these people, these shitty foreigners, they can't come back to China. Well, I'm gonna tell you, Gweilo, let me tell you something. I was just in China. You know the Chinese New Year? Guess who was there? That's right. I was in China. Surprise! You know why I didn't make a video about it? Because I don't care. Because it's no one's business. It's my business. And I don't have to put everything on the internet, okay? But here's the thing. My wife is Chinese. I can go to China anytime I want. There's no problem there. It's no problem. If I could get in and out, I'm sure the other guys could too if they wanted. Doesn't matter. But let's talk about this other bullshit that he's pushing in the video. This whole swimming thing. He's talking about Serpent Now, I'm not gonna sit here and defend Serpent. He's a big boy, you know. He can defend himself, right? But look at the picture on the screen here. This is from Gweilo's video. It's got his name on there, right? It's Gweilo60 and Nanning on the ground in Nanning, and he's showing you the river here, and he's like, what about that Serpent guy that said the Chinese people couldn't swim? And then he's like, let me turn the camera. Let me turn the camera. And then what does he do? He turns the camera, and this is what you see. What do you see there? It looks like a bunch of people with inner tubes. How come, you see the old guy in the picture standing up there? The water's up to his knees, but he still has an inner tube. Why does if everyone in this picture, let me ask you a question. If everyone in this picture is such a good swimmer, you know, I mean, obviously, we've never been to Nanning. We've never seen the amazing Nanning swim team swimming in the local river by Gweilo60's house. If all of these people are such amazing swimmers, why do all of them have flotation devices? Why do they all have inner tubes? Could it be that more bullshit? That's right, more bullshit from Gweilo60 on the ground in Nanning. Because again, they're not great swimmers. That's why they're in the water with flotation devices. Common sense, right? And then he talks about these other comments of people talking about how their mom uses an iPad or some bullshit, you know, and he tries to make it sound like Chinese people don't do that. Gweilo, are you fucking kidding me, bro? You live in China, the country who one of the largest propaganda pieces it's ever pushed is about their phones and their tablets. Companies like Huawei and Xiaomi, and you're trying to act like all these Chinese people just don't play on their phones all the time. Are you serious? Are you kidding me, bro? Chinese people are the most phone obsessed people in the world. In the world. There's Chinese people I know that have like 3 phones that carry them around and constantly talk on them. Okay? Chinese, you can't brag about how Chinese people can do everything on their phones and then act like they're not using their phones all the time, because they are. Okay? Quit lying. Stop lying, Gweilo. Stop lying. And then near the end of the video, he makes the stupidest claims of all. He says that China's hospitals are better than America's. No, they're not. It's not my opinion. You can go online and you can look it up. It's literally false. Literally. The American medical technology and hospital standards are ahead of China all the way. And then he says the schools are better. Which, let me ask you another question here. Hey, Gweilo, if you're pitching this video to retirees, why would the retirees care about school quality? Just wondering about that, you know. Oh, the schools in China are great. So you're telling your 60-year-old, 70-year-old groupies, the schools in China are great. You mean the schools that they have no intentions of going to? You moron. On top of it, China is known for two schools. Tsinghua University and Peking University. Two. They're internationally known for two. Tsinghua was actually paid for, of course, by funding from America. Say thank you, because that funding came from America. How can you complain and act as if the education is better in China when we funded the education in it? Makes zero sense. Okay? And then to top it off, he says those magical words that when he said them, I busted out laughing. He says, and if you don't believe me, go Google it. No, Gweilo, how about you go fucking Google it, you moron? You live in a country with a firewall that blocks Google. You have to have a VPN to get to Google because the government doesn't want you on Google. So you're telling all these old people, go on Google and look it up so that they can get here in China and not use Google because it's blocked. Didn't think that one through either, did you, moron? I swear this guy's... It's too easy. It's too easy. And then, the finisher, the end all, if you take one thing from this video, he says that, of course, China is a great place for retirees. But let me ask you a question. Just one last question. If China is such an amazing place to retire to, where's the retirement visa? There isn't one. You can't show up. You can't declare yourself retired. It doesn't exist. You can't pay so much money. Put so much money in a Chinese bank account. There's nothing you can do. There's no retirement visa from China. There are a lot of countries that do. Countries that want people to retire in their countries, they have visas for this. China doesn't have one. You have to marry a citizen, or you've got to work, or you've got to go to school there. That's it. Those are the doors. There's no, hey, I'm old and no longer working, I'm retired visa. Doesn't exist. He spent an entire video selling a retirement pathway that doesn't exist. Man. Wow. What an idiot. But think about this for a second. This is just hypothetical here. Picture a landlord who owns your building and the only newspaper allowed to report on it. And he owns that newspaper, right? The rent's dirt cheap, sure. Because he also decides, what you're allowed to say about, his apartment that he owns, and you can't complain about the mold or the noise, the guy who disappeared from Unit 4B, can't complain about him at all, even though he continuously runs up and down the hallways naked. You wouldn't call that a 5-star living experience just because the rent's so low. That's what China's like. Okay? There's a reason that the rent's low right now. Okay, now picture walking into a car dealership and they hand you a glossy brochure for a brand new car that they don't even sell. That's this entire video. He's selling you a story about something that China doesn't even sell. It's insane. Okay? That's why I made this video. Because it's easy. Too easy to debunk any of the bullshit that Gweilo60 says. That's all I wanted to say. Maybe I'll see you in a year. I don't know. I'll probably make another video. That's all I wanted to say, though. Like, comment, subscribe, and thank you for watching.